one hand, it's like everything should be tested because like why would you ever write code that's not worth testing? And then on the other extreme, it's like, well, if you have too much tests, then like it becomes difficult to like update your code. Like everything should be tested because like why would you ever write code
That's a good point.
testing? Like it gets to the point where it's like ineffective. There's like sloppy engineering, and it's like it just becomes so hard to touch anything.
Right. Yeah. Yo, Tom, I think you were echoing a little bit.
Yeah, I just shut it off. Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, sick. Good. You figured it out.
Classic Tom.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, literally.
becoming a YouTuber professional, man. So tonight we're gonna have Jinja with templates with Evan and web scraping with Mustafa.
Yeah, are we like live?
Yeah, we're live now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Live to the United States. Actually, no, to the world. Mustafa, are you gonna show us your camera?
I don't think I want to see this in this heat. It's dangerous.
Oh, Mustafa, that's so funny.
How's it going, Mr. Evan? All good?
Yeah, everything's good. How are you doing? All right?
Good. I shouldn't be presenting, and the master himself is here, but
No, I don't think so.
thank you for giving me the platform.
Oh, you're so sweet, man. I'm glad to see that you're involved. That's all that matters.
Hey Ryan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good stuff, man. Good to see you.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry for disappearing for 2 weeks. I've been quite busy with work.
Yeah, you were absent. You.
So you're marked absent.
Yeah.
Tom's the teacher.
I'm the TA. No, I'm the TA. Imagine the teacher. Actually, you're the teacher tonight.
I'm the principal, man. I'm the guy who gets you're doing wrong.
That's right.
Oh, Matt's suspending all of us. Anything we want to talk about at first, or should I give it like to 7:10 and then I'll start? What do you guys think? Or I could just kick it off.
Yeah, I'd give it a few minutes. I mean, I think it's nice to shoot the shit for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I have kind of a, I guess I have like a professional networking problem that's maybe relatable that we can talk about recently. So for in this scenario, basically, someone contacted me a while ago and asked about my experience with the boot camp. This person is, qualified at what they do in like finance or something like that. We had like discussed their interests. They had seemed more interested in like the product management side of things, or like UX, or like just not exactly what the data visualization bootcamp that I have experience with was teaching. And so we had kind of left it at that, and they were grateful for me taking some time to talk to them. And then recently they had actually reached out to me to ask for a reference to a product management position, and I feel really conflicted in that I was glad to have had a conversation with this person and to have kind of maybe built a little bit of a relationship there, but I don't feel like I know them well enough to act as an actual reference for something. I haven't actually worked with this person. And though they were nice and professional and everything, I don't feel like I'm in the right place to refer them to anything. And I perhaps don't know how to approach that situation professionally. If anyone has some input, it feels like letting someone down nicely, and I really don't like letting people down.
Sounds like
you're saying, you can't recommend because you don't know their true experience. Is that the problem?
Yeah, basically, it's like I haven't worked with you where you are a product manager, and I feel conflicted, pretending to reference you for something. Not pretending, but referencing you based on maybe you'll send me your resume, but I don't really know any of your skill sets aside from our conversation about something that was not relevant to this.
I'm not qualified on the subject, but my immediate instinct is like say no, but then also maybe present it as you don't want to run the risk of writing a bad reference because you maybe don't know the skills that they have or don't know like what the job position entails. So you could maybe like do something that's maybe counterproductive for them. But still, I think that's a very weird request to receive.
Yeah, I guess maybe half of this is just validation that this is a weird thing to do to someone or a position to put someone like myself in. And you guys are my closest professional friend group, so I figured I'd just field it here and be like, am I crazy? I feel terrible just like telling this person I'm not going to do it.
Can I also add that I've also been getting like requests on LinkedIn to kind of describe my experience in the boot camp. Oddly enough, sometimes they don't even respond, so like I get a little bit angry that I took the time to like answer or something. But it is weird. Like I don't know how they find me, or like I don't know, or like why they've been asking, because like I think there's plenty of resources already. But I don't know. I just thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I've maybe had a better experience than you in a lot of situations where like I have had like on the phone conversations with people to talk about the experience, and I've had like really receptive people through LinkedIn message talking about it. So I haven't gotten like ghosted like that, which stinks.
Oh, really? Wow.
But I know they find me through. I think 2U has like I have like a personal testimony that's on the website. So I know people are finding me that way.
I think that sounds plausible, right? Because like you were a TA, and yeah, and you have this profile on that page. But like, I'm just wondering. I don't know how these people are. I mean, it's for me, it's like on my LinkedIn, but I was just kind of like puzzled by it. Because like even still, I think there's probably better resources to get like, I mean, such as you, to ask. But I don't know. I guess a student's perspective might be helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I was a student too. So I
the best student.
Give both those perspectives. Yeah, never being a student was the best idea I ever had.
Evan, remember on the presentation, like was you, me, and Jana, like on the first day of the. It wasn't actually the first day of the class. It was the pre meeting that the class had.
Tom, that's so funny. I was thinking about that the other day. You were like moving apartments or something, so you were like video chatting us from your lobby.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, these people seem nice. This is funny.
I spoke to Jana today, actually.
Hey, Andre.
Hey, Andre.
Hey, Andre. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good stuff.
Oh, glad to hear.
Just had dinner, so.
Oh, that's
feeling
nice.
Extra good, and now I have wine, so I'm feeling.
Oh, awesome.
Andre's getting tipsy for this meeting.
Yeah. Oh, I should start.
You're setting a very low bar for tipsy here. I don't know if I should get.
Drink a little bit more, and then we're going to ask you about your experience in dentistry. We're going to hear you rant and all your complaints.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah, just make me rant about stuff. By the way, is my AC like? Can you hear it, or is it?
No, you good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good, man. You must have a nice mic.
Yeah, I do. I actually poured a lot of money into it.
Sweet.
Oh, that's why you
No.
sound good.
Dude, totally worth it, to be honest.
It's like crystal clear.
I don't know how well I sound, but I have one of the HyperX headsets, and I just love it. It like doesn't get any background noise in.
Yeah, it's I got an Audio Technica like stand up mic kind of, so it's
Awesome.
good. But I think actually what it is Discord's algorithms for noise canceling and that sort of stuff. I think
Oh, right.
they're actually pretty good with that.
Good point.
And it's
Yeah,
only
yeah.
better.
I see there's always a ton of beta features in the settings for that kind of thing, which seems really cool.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that would be a good place to work, huh? Discord.
Discord?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, that'd be a
I guess you really gotta know JavaScript, I guess, or TypeScript or whatever.
Is this
Man,
an Electron app that
yeah.
we're in right now, or what is this?
Yeah, it is Electron.
Okay. I assume so.
That's
Yeah,
why
I mean,
the
working-
web app is like exactly the same.
Working for Discord, you're a little bit late to the game, but it's still not too late.
True. I definitely don't get how they make money though, but whatever.
Oh, with boosts to the server, you can buy boosts for different.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you
really?
can boost servers.
It's their monetization is not really visible, which is the concerning part. But you can definitely.
That sounds like promotion. Is it for promoting or what is it?
It's for like if you want to stream through Discord, because you can obviously we use it every time, right? You can get a higher bit rate, and you can get multiple people streaming at the same time. It's mostly for like gigantic communities, right?
I got you.
Have like hundreds.
So in
of thousands.
Slack, it's one company paying for everything, but in Discord, they're trying to just like break that up into multiple people. So instead of one person footing the bill, or like one company buying a Slack account, would be the community each pitching in, and then you have certain perks from it, like better streaming and things like that.
You know, one thing I've been thinking about that I don't understand is why hasn't, Discord obviously is branded for gaming, which is unfortunate. I don't understand why Discord hasn't destroyed like Zoom and, WebEx and all this stuff. You can just have a constant uptime voice server for your entire company that people can just jump into a room and have a meeting. You'd have to like set up anything.
That's right.
I don't know either. It feels like it just hasn't been part of their strategy.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of thing, like a company would afford like whatever amount of slots on the server. It would be tremendous. Like you could have so many people in Discord. And
I feel like it's so obvious though that it absolutely must be on their radar, and it's something they either have thought about or are thinking about.
it might be the gaming branding that's on Discord that's off-putting or for enterprise, but yeah, I can't really rationalize why you'd use Zoom or WebEx or anything like that over just having here's the Pure IQ Discord server, or here's the JP Morgan Discord.
So I think it is like Slack has better professional branding. 'Cause, like a bunch of people I've told that were on Discord are like, why would you do that? Like Andre, Franklin, right? Like Franklin doesn't want to get on Discord. For this period.
Oh, yeah, I know. He has this thing where he doesn't obviously he has his fucking BlackBerry and he doesn't want to download any apps for messaging.
Dude, I think about being like that sometimes, but I rely on Google Maps too much.
He's like, there's just too many sources of input. He has his USB port and his PS2 port, and then that's it. You can't really get him beyond his texts and Slack.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's like cognitive overload. I don't really get. I can't really rationalize how Franklin thinks.
But in Franklin's defense, he has a pretty unique profile. He's like a lawyer tech. So the first time
he's straddling. Well, he's a lawyer, but he's also computer science. So he's,
I only got to meet that guy once.
Yeah, he has a pretty interesting background. Like he's like a law and tech, like attorney.
He's overall an interesting guy, and obviously he operates in a very high stress space, like 24/7. So
yeah, in finance on top of everything. So it's like wow.
Very cool. I just started sharing screen. I figure we'll just kind of like start digging into things.
Yep.
Here.
There you go.
That's cool with you guys. So So today we're going to be talking about Jinja, and just how we kind of use it at work. We've been trying to template as much as possible, especially when we have redundant requests for either creating tables or for creating views. Sometimes we need to write really long SQL statements to do like complicated merge intos or to do incremental loading, and it just helps to have that SQL handy in a repository in a way that you can just change some variables, basically plug them into a template, and have your output modified with those variables intact. So that way you have a reliable, like, tested framework for creating specific SQL statements that the process will work end to end, basically. And you have therefore made it configurable as well. So it's very much in keeping with the philosophy of, like, configuration as code, in a way, in that, these templates are our black box. We plug some variables in, and we get out something that's, reliable, tested, and is legitimate SQL that will work. So actually, before we get into this, I just wanted to mention that I'm trying something out, which is to have small bite-sized tutorials whenever I present that are not a lot of code, but can hopefully help you take away, a new skill set that you might want to look into, or just at the very least, like, a new library or a new way of thinking that you might be able to implement at work, or in your free time as well. So just to switch tabs real quick, this is part of, like, a bigger philosophy that I'm working towards right now, which is to start blogging a little bit. And so this is my, like, basic GitHub IO blog, and my kind of, like, my impetus for, like, wanting to do this kind of thing is that as I'm still kind of a junior engineer. As I reach out in the world of code, and as I apply for more positions and whatnot, I'm kind of always thinking about, like, oh man, I really need to, like, pick up some other projects and, like, update my GitHub, and, like, I haven't done a big data project in a while that integrates, like, all these new tools that I kind of know, but I just haven't put them all together in something I can, like, put on my personal GitHub page. But maybe I've used it at work, or I've used it in some other context, but haven't made it perfect and clean for my personal GitHub page. I said, I can write maybe a little bit about each of these things, one day a week, or every other day, or just in the morning when I'm drinking coffee. And so my idea has been that I'm going to just write a little bit, every day or every other day, as a GitHub blog post, to just showcase what's on my radar, tiny little tutorials, showcase the importance of things, or concepts, within the data engineering world I'm a part of, in order to have some public page out there that shows more than just, maybe the couple outdated projects on my GitHub profile, and that I might have a little bit more to share with the world than is immediately available on the GitHub profile. So this one that we're talking about today is actually part of that. And I'm definitely open to, after this whole presentation, anyone's feelings on that, and I would encourage you to try to do something like that on your own. If you want to get a GitHub blog going, I'll show you. So this small presentation actually comes from one of these bite-sized blog posts, where one morning I wanted to just kind of throw together a simple example of how we're using Jinja SQL at work, or Jinja with SQL at work. So what I had alluded to earlier was that we are basically creating templates that do simple things, like maybe a copy into statement it builds, or maybe a common thing is that you want to build a table and then build an associated copy into statement that you might want to put into an Airflow DAG, or a routine process, or a cron job, or something like that. And so you can imagine that if you have, like, 20 columns, you really don't want to, like, copy all these columns into your copy into statement, and then copy all these columns into your create table statement. You want to just have some template where you can plug in the variables once. You can say, these are all my columns, these are comments, these are the types. Now give me back basically the whole process from creating the table to creating the copy into statement.
Oh, that's cool.
And anything else that's in between. There's lots of use cases. This is a huge black box. And so this is basically what we do. We say, we want to make a copy into statement. So Jinja allows us to create these variables. So if you're not familiar with the syntax for Jinja, you may or may not have seen it if you're from a bootcamp that used Flask. The Jinja templates are, just everywhere in Flask HTML templating. Jinja allows you to basically create for loops based on variables. It allows you to just insert variables directly into a body of text. You can write if statements. You can inject functions into it. There's a lot that you can do, and it's incredibly powerful for mixing and matching templates, as well as building templates on top of each other. For this tutorial, we're just going to build a copy into statement. We're basically going to take a JSON configuration file. We're going to hook it up to our template that creates a copy into statement. If you're not familiar, that is basically something that will take a CSV and copy it into a table. So what we're going to do is give the Jinja template our list of columns, and we're also going to give it the name of kind of the table that we want it to be inserted into, and we're also going to give it a location in S3. This is typically how a copy into statement finds the file and then figures out where to place it in the database. And so we want to do this in a configurable manner. So we're opting for JSON this time. You can, we've done this with YAML as well. It really comes down to personal preference. But to give you a quick overview of this Jinja template, you typically kind of end it with a J2 for the file suffix. And what we're going to do looks exactly like a copy into statement. It's like pretty much just writing SQL, except adding some, if you're familiar with Python string formatting, it shouldn't be anything crazy, So we're saying we're going to have some object that has a property, the target name, which is going to be kind of the target table name. So we want to copy into our target table. We want to select, and then we're going to loop over every single column. For a column in, table.columns, which we can kind of infer as a list, we want to take the name property of that, and we want to get the alias property of that as well. And this is just some additional stuff to add a comma if this isn't the last stage in the loop. You don't want to have, a bunch of templates outputting basically invalid SQL because there's a trailing comma. So this is just saying if it's not the last iteration in the loop, throw a comma at the end. Otherwise, don't put anything. And then we end our for loop. So this is kind of just the basic building blocks of Jinja. You can see right from this simple example, in order to put variables, it's typically double brackets. And in order to do, like function blocks or loop blocks, you typically use the syntax that is the curly bracket and a percentage sign. And then to round it out, we basically say we want to explicitly state our S3 stage. Obviously, different databases handle this thing kind of differently. If you have a Redshift database, this should kind of just work for you. But if you have like Snowflake or something else, you would need to tailor this to your need. So now that we know kind of the skeleton of this thing, we want to talk about how we're gonna set up like our configuration file, right? So we said we want to give this some object called table because all of these parameters have to do with our table, right? So in terms of our table, the target name, exactly right here, same name, is some make-believe table. Let's say these are app payments. So we're going to call it transactions.apppayments, and then we're going to provide a list of our columns. And we're, just like up here, each column is going to have a name and an alias. So the name is date, alias is payment date. You can imagine that as a black box, you can put as many variables in here as you can think of, or properties. So often we'll have type in here. Often we'll also have comment in here. That way, you're not copying and pasting that comment everywhere. It can get just really frustrating, and it's not good engineering. And that's kind of it. It looks like I apologize, I left out the S3 stage in this object. I need to go back and update that. But the S3 stage would be in here as well, and we can actually update that in the REPL when we get there. And then the last piece is just to write a Python driver program that will kind of do all this. So the steps that we need to follow is that we need to read in a JSON configuration file, so it becomes like a Python dictionary basically. We need to open up our template with Jinja. They have this nice template object that will that we can work with in order to render our config based on render our template based on the JSON config. And then all we're going to do is print it to the console. So you can imagine, I did this at work today where I basically took an example like this, except I created 12 different merge into statements for a lot of tables that were migrating between databases. So Vimeo acquired a company a while ago, and so what we're doing is kind of like, migrating databases, and some of that involves just kind of, moving data from one place to another, a lot of merge into statements in order to incrementally load things. And so that is a lot of templating, a lot of configurations, and doing things iteratively so that you can kind of do it in an elegant manner and have a reliable SQL statement at the end. So something new that I'm trying out is on Tom's recommendation, is this REPL thing. And so this is in the blog post, and I can post it in here. And basically, it's just a nice way to host interactive code. So if I were to run this example, it will render my template. Oh, it looks like I did include the stage in this config. But what you're going to end up is something like this, right? Where this is kind of a tried and true copy into statement. You have a rigid way to provide a configuration file and get something out that is meaningful and tested. You can imagine if we had tests in this repository, it'd be even more reliable. And so I kind of wanted to share this because it's very easy to, depending on where you're at, especially in like the data space, it's very easy to go about just like searching for a create table statement or, a copy into statement that someone did like, a week ago just to have something to reference, when it's a really great philosophy to just build something that you can use going forward, that you can use with some kind of configuration as well. And so I just wanted to show real quick. So yeah, so we had our list of columns, and the final property there is the S3 stage. Didn't want to leave you guys hanging with that missing.
Ooh.
So just the last thing I'll say on this is that this is part of kind of a greater effort to move towards like a self-service type of repository, where you could imagine, if you commit one of these configuration files, like let's say this is a table configuration file, right? So if I commit one of these files to a repository, it would be, absolutely ideal if my, CI CD process would, take this configuration file, build the create table statement, and then automatically make a pull request to, maybe my Olympic repository, or whatever my repository is for database objects, wherever those are saved. So you aren't even writing SQL anymore at that point. You just have a repository with so many templates that is intelligent enough to know that, okay, you committed a new configuration file for a table. Let me build that table for you and then create the pull request. So it's just completely hands-off in that respect. And so, did anyone jump in this? And so that's kind of the idea I want to leave you guys with. That's kind of the big idea behind this, and kind of the big push that we're trying to do at Vimeo. And I think it's just a really great idea to kind of pursue for any data engineering team that's working closely with the database. Sometimes if you're big data, this isn't as big of a deal, but I think the concept is incredibly important, where you have a repository, you make some commit to it. Your repository is smart enough. You have some Jenkins job, some Circle CI job that picks up on what this configuration file is and will just render the SQL for you when you've written that code and built up that repository. So yeah, I mean, that's any questions. If anyone has any, that's it. If anyone has any questions or thoughts about doing little blog posts, I'd be glad to talk that out. See if anyone has any ideas on kind of improving that, or fixing the problem of not always having an up-to-date GitHub to show employers and whatnot, or just show off to everyone maybe. And so that's kind of my answer to it. Definitely curious what other people do to get their name out there, stay relevant on the web. Yeah, thanks.
I have a few questions. One, I don't know if this is you, but the poetry file in Python, in is that something that you touched, or is that something that came from REPL?
No, you know what? REPL just detects the dependencies in your Python file, and it uses poetry as the default manager for packages.
Okay. How do you like working with REPL?
So, I think I actually really like how clean it is. In fact, I've messed with REPL as far back as when I was in high school, but I just never really had a reason to use it for anything. But now with these micro blog posts, I think it's really great to just be able to give people something to test out immediately. I think it's important for the philosophy of small bite-sized examples to just be here, now you go do whatever with it. With obviously no guarantee that anyone will do anything with it, but it's better than just going to a repository and having code that you just look at. You can actually interact with it here.
Thank you. This is Johnson.
Hi, Johnson.
Hey, Johnson.
Good. I'm just trying to see that. So I was reading a little bit about Jinja on Google just to make sure that I understand. So what I read there was just that it's sort of in sort of an ecosystem in lieu of or in addition to Django. The way you've sort of outlined, first of all, thank you so much. It's very helpful and very different perspectives. So great. But you've sort of been talking about templated SQL with Jinja. So can you sort of help bridge that gap for me? Is it that Jinja about the way you're using Jinja is primarily from a templated SQL standpoint itself, but then it allows you a lot more active development in the Jinja environment itself. Does that make sense of what I'm asking?
Yeah, I completely understand. I heard you mention Django. That's really the same as the status with Flask. You might remember from the bootcamp was that in Flask we used templates to also. You remember that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. In Flask we also use templates to do something build the header of your web page and then reference that in every other child web page automatically. So for your header, you're just maintaining one file, and then all of your other HTML files basically inherit from that header file, that header HTML file. So this is honestly a completely separate use case, but we are still using the power of Jinja where, instead of rendering HTML, we're using it to render SQL. So the principles still apply. And I've actually seen, that thing that Matt presented on the tool DBT in their repository, they actually use this as well for creating their SQL statements.
Thank you.
Yeah, did that answer your question? Okay, cool. But yeah, all right, cool. Thank you guys for your time and attention. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll post the link to this blog post. Feel free to ask any questions and whatnot. Peace.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mustafa, are you ready to take over?
Yes. Thank you, Evan, for the presentation. It's a pleasure, and I'm gonna share my screen right now. Hopefully, you guys see my screen. What I'm going to explain this today. I'm going through web scraping. I'm going to explain it like straight from the absolute basics. And if it's too slow, you guys just tell me. If it's good for you, then we'll just keep going at the same pace. And then whatever was helpful for me, I'm gonna share that with you, because it did make a difference for me. So starting by the simple thing, which is the theme. The black theme was good. This is just an extension for Chrome. This line right here, it could have a wider display. So this was good for me. So today I'm going to explain. I'm going to walk through the what do you call it, Selenium, and I'll be going to Charity Navigator, which is a non-profit organization website, where we. Well, as I told you guys before, I'm helping my brother in a consultation firm, and we're basically helping for-profit and non-profit organization. But it's always good to build your database. So the first thing is when you go to a website, you need to kind of like walk through what do you need to do through that website, right? And how what is that navigation you need to go through? What information are you trying to collect? Now, one very important thing that's going to make a lot of difference when you're trying to run a scraper is if you have the scraper on like kind of a minimize screen or a maximize screen. So part of my code that I'll always include is just to maximize the window, so that if I'm running code for whatever reason, it's always maximized and there isn't any hidden items at any point. And through the scraping, you gotta know that, for example, this is one of the items that I need to check. It has such a design, but this is not always the case, because I think this one, it had, I think it's a line before that, could have like anything as small as this in the design. It could really mess up your code and just break the code for no obvious reason. So the first thing is that when I come to the website and I want to see, okay, what do I need? What items do I need here, and how can I make this scrape as successful as possible? So for example, here, well, this website is like really nice because everything is like presented so nicely. So they have these items over here. So this is whatever they start with 9. So this is 92nd Street organization. If you go to E, so on and so forth. So I need something to be going through all of these letters and numbers, and after that, that'll be this. After that, I will need to go through all of these names where I want to ask the code to click on one, go in, read as much information as I need, and then head back out. I don't know if you guys know this or no, but again, I said at the beginning, if I'm going too slow, just tell me. You gotta know whatever is written in purple here, this is the tag. Whatever is written in this gold or yellow, this could be a class, it could be an ID, like this one, it could be whatever. And all of that, you can use it to find different elements. And it's not always a clear path towards finding your element. You might need to drill through a couple or more of the tags. Like you might need to find the first tagged element, which is the div, and then in that you need to find another tag element, which is the tr or the row in a table. So this is like kind of a thing you would need to test on how to navigate through your website, and each website is different. Some websites might be easy; you could just find these elements. some of the times they might be hidden. And also I wanted to before I get going with that, I wanted to thank you, Evan, because I was thinking that I built a scraper for a couple of banks, and I know this would be useful for many people, but I didn't know how. Well, I don't want to share the code, but again, I just want to know. I want to let people know that I did that. So yeah, a blog could be a really good idea for that. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Now, so it's first that I identified the website that I need to go through and how would I want to walk through it. So this seems to be back in Python land. This seems to be the first for loop, and then I can see here from this is basically the search bar. I can see here, well, okay, this is E. I try something else. Okay, this is B. Then this is way simpler than me trying to go find an element by its hyperlink, because this doesn't seem to be even like the numbers aren't going in the right order. They are very random. It's really hard for me. Why not just have a list to loop over it, so that the first loop that I thought would be useful for me to go through, and then this second list seems to be the second for loop. So it's a for loop inside a for loop. And please, guys, when I'm done, or you could stop me while I'm explaining, if you think there are better ways to go add about this, that would be also beneficial for me. So before I get to the functions that I have identified, I'm going to just show you the code. So I had this list, of course, is I just took off just a few letters from it, nothing specific. So as I told you, this is the first for loop that I'm designing, and I basically tell Selenium to go to that link, sleep for some time. This sleep is another important thing where sometimes the internet speed messes about. It takes some time to load, so sometimes the transition is different. So it's just better sometimes to put the code to sleep, and that is basically just like 2 or 1, just easy numbers. This T, I used it in identifying which record to insert in, and that was thank you, Matt, when you pointed out that I don't have to use the MongoDB if I just have a unique number that I can just have this recorded and then just insert that in a data frame. It wasn't as easy in the bank, so I could do it here because the records seem to be really clear. So I wanted something automatic where I would know the maximum length of my data frame and then just add the next number after that. Another issue that I found is if you create a data frame, which is here, and then you don't have like a trial row or something, like the first row is empty, this number produces a NaN value where the max gets to be a NaN plus 1 is still a NaN, and it just messes up the whole thing. So I wanted to overcome that. And then for the range, of course, this is just the code broke at some point, so I had it at the 622. But basically, this doesn't have to start at any number. It's I find the elements by the class name such and such, and then find by the tag name, and then loop over that, and I take all the length. And this length, for example, it starts from 1, not from 0. Because I found that through the trial is the number is 0 is this one. This one is basically unclickable, so it makes the code crash. So I skip number 1, and then basically I start detecting the name allocation, and then I click on it. Now here I thought what I saw during my trial with scraping is after I look through the website and define most of the different designs in the website, and just basically like see, okay, this page had this design and the other page had another extra item, such and such. that I think that I like crossed off all the different designs. Now that I have all the information that I need, I basically pass that through a try and accept statement, where if I don't find what I'm looking for, or if the design changes for something else or for some other miraculous reason, then just keep that record, because when you're scraping a lot of items, you don't want your code to be breaking at each and every second. But that's still not a shortcut where you do that just trying one specific, like a one design or something, and you will say basically, okay, my homework is done. That was for the code, and then for the data frame insertion. And the thing I do after that is I start defining different functions, because again, I think a simple rule that was taught to us and was very beneficial in the bootcamp. If you're ever going to use a Control C, Control V, just functionize it, because there's a big chance you'll use it one more time. So I started having some function, which again bringing everything back to the Python land, and where I need to find where I need to extract a specific element. Now, one very important thing is this function, which is the driver.execute script. Sometimes you do find elements, but if, for example, let's say these are 30, right? And this one that is hidden here, this is the 31st. If you do not tell the Selenium to execute script, and you just tell it to find the item that is the 31st without actually scrolling down, it will break. So if you have any item that is hidden and not visible to you, you cannot click it without this execute script. So this is something really important that I also found through my experience with different websites. Another thing that I tried here, I know it looks kind of hideous, but it was really helpful for me, is I found, and that was very specific to this website, is I found that there is an element here called summer. It has a class of a summary, and it basically just joins a bunch of information that I'm looking for. So it gets this one, it gets the this table, and some other items that I'm looking for. And instead of me writing different function or different extraction functions, I find that I can just use the specific text that I'm looking for, and have that extracted immediately, and have that extracted by the function that I already designed. So instead of saving a specific number or location, I can just loop over through this list of text and get from it whatever I need. So I use that here. I use that in this function as well. So that was basically for like how to extract elements. So what I would advise is look for if that of course is doable, look for the element that combines the most elements that you're looking for. Sometimes a pd.read HTML, for example, where it only reads tables on an HTML page, that could be really useful, because that could extract all of the tables on a web page. So that means that might save you a lot of time. This is an example of a different design page, but I just want to put a different design. So for example, this is a small table, this is another small table, there's another small table. So you might, if you're looking for just a simple information, all you might need is pd.read_html, and just give it that HTML, and you're good to go. Now, getting to the second point on what to use, whether it's Selenium or Splinter, I found that they're basically the same thing. This directory of something. This for me was extremely helpful. We haven't been taught the essence of just getting the directory. This guides you on the things even that you do not know. Just go through whatever elements are in a directory, and it's going to help you a lot just on how to use a package. Like I use the package for this the Pi image, where I was going to use it to analyze convert images to text, and just having this dir the directory of a specific package is useful. So I found out that this is the Selenium where I identified that WebDriver.com. And for the browser was the same thing. I can get the best of both worlds. Sometimes it's here find by ID and by name and by text. For example, by text is not in Selenium. So if I wanted to use Splinter find by text, I could do that. And if I want to go back to Selenium, I can just do browser.driver, and I'm using the same package in the same place. So that was good for me, because sometimes I felt the need of having to make the decision whether should I start with Selenium or whether should I start with Splinter. And again, and for the executable path, or just having a Chrome driver, it's basically this Chrome driver. You have to download a Chrome driver that is compatible with the version of Chrome you have, so that you will be able to launch such a page. And also, without it, you won't be able to launch Chrome through Selenium or Splinter. Now, using Beautiful Soup, I know this is the right practice and this is the right way of doing things, where the safe thing to do things is I go here, I basically take this all of this HTML, dump it into a Mongo database. For example, if I forgot to scrape the name of the CEO in the first run, so I don't have to run the whole thing again. My issue with that is it wasn't doable for me, because I did the same thing with Etsy, and I had 30 gigs of information that my RAM basically couldn't handle. So if I wanted any further information, I had to somehow access this DB, or use a database, for example, from AWS or something, where they have the computational power, and I just get the HTML from it. So you do not have to use Beautiful Soup for your scrape. You can just do it like the way I showed you guys here, which is just directly find the elements you're looking for, do some Python functioning on them, and then get your needed result. If you want to save the HTML for later, that is the right thing to do. But again, that's not the thing I do because of computational limits. And for the Beautiful Soup, you can it's basically you take the HTML, which is your page source, pass this HTML parser to it, and then you find the tag you're looking for, and then the attributes. That's what I showed you guys in the beginning in the gold color. You can have it as class, as ID, as name, as text, whatever it is that you're looking for. You can even pass multiple items here. Just have that in a list format, and it's going to find the elements you're looking for. So, for example, you want to, find the div item, the div tag, but you want it to go through left content first and then left nav content, and that basically drops it to this place. And one last thing is the difference. You want to, for example, you want to type here. You want to type here programmatically. So through Selenium, you can do that through something called driver. You find the element first. You find the element. So let's say this element name is the name. You can use the name. You can use the ID, which is the keyword list. If that is the only one, if that's the only single ID there with this keyword list value. So you find it first, and then you do .send_keys, and then whatever you want to type there. For Splinter, they have a similar thing, but it didn't work. It failed a couple of times with me for an obvious reason, which is the .fill. So same thing, find the element first, and then do a .fill and whatever you want to type. Yeah, I think that covers most of it, and I'm open for questions or suggestions or whatever guys want.
Yeah, hey Mustafa. I'm wondering if web scraping can be really tough um, to like debug, I guess,
Yeah.
to kind of walk through the steps and to, it's a lot of trial and error. I wonder if you've picked up any, any shortcuts, tips, tricks,
Yeah.
good logging practices that have helped you to do this faster or more efficiently that you could share.
Yeah. So sometimes, for example, in this particular example, sometimes you can have different like print statements, like you can do that. Um, but like for example, let me walk you through my experience. I built a program for one of the accounting firms for the bank scrapers, where I gave them the flash gap, and they just have to go to their file directory, right click Python, and then the name of the file, and then that would just run it. But for me personally, to use it, since I have access to this and I have the knowledge to this, and same goes to you, when you write in a Jupyter notebook and you just keep some global elements, like for example this M. So when my code breaks, I know exactly, you remember in the beginning of the tutorial I had this at 621. So I know exactly where that broke because I kept this M as a global element. So you might want to have some global checkpoints where you would say, okay, if this failed at that point, then I know when do I need to rerun, and then I would know if that is just for example, debugging the internet speed. Uh, I couldn't think of anything to like. How can I test that, right? At some point, if the internet gets slow, like is my code not finding something, or the internet just slow? So that came through similar inspection points. Is I kept global elements where I either printed or just stored somewhere, and I would try that myself for like a number one or two elements, and I find that okay, through a normal iteration, normal function, the program has no problem of running it. So I try slowing that down, and then if slowing it works, then that was basically an internet speed issue. Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, sorry. Definitely. Just was curious if you had, picked up anything. Like, when people are starting off with web scraping, it can be a little intimidating for those reasons.
Yeah. Just global elements basically. I would say like the do's and don'ts of scraping, as you know, just take some easy websites to start with. Like if someone wants to start with Amazon, they might be blocked from the second time. So or any of these e-commerce websites, just start with something easy. Have some global elements that you want to test out, uh, and then what I would definitely suggest is not trying to start this whole thing in a single iteration. Break the code into different chunks. I would suggest that.
Hey Mustafa, this is Jatin. First of all, just real quick, would you say, and just sort of piggybacking on what Evan was asking, right? Like, websites like Amazon and stuff are very difficult to scrape, but like a lot of people want to use that for like a lot of analysis, like sentiment analysis and so forth. So one of the issues you run into is because the website changes, and they do it on purpose as well sometimes, right? Like, did you pick up some sort of a technique or something of like an alert mechanism when, let's say, the website's changing, you really scrape the data without, of course, the vendor informing you, right? Have you encountered something like that?
I actually in my second project in the bootcamp, it was me and my friend. Unfortunately, he's not here today. I don't see him here. So it was me and Mustafa Morsi, where we the second project was to scrape Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Target, and in a single run, where build just a stupid web page, or you just type a search term that you wanna. I can actually bring that up while I'm explaining. You wanna type like you're looking for hats or whatever. You wanna wedding rings. You're getting married soon, and you wanna know which website to go to. And basically, you wanna start like I told you with the highest level of elements. That's something that is like you know, like that element that I told you about, which is that summary class, right? Because that includes a bunch of things, and that even if they try to change bits and pieces in it, you still have that bigger element. And if you've done that and still your code somewhat changes or doesn't produce, this is sorry for the different presentation, but this is what we had output. We basically scraped the image, the title, the store name, the rating, the price, and then Shop Now basically directs you to the link. So to your point, where what if that vendor changes their code, I would simply suggest like some try and accept statements. Because if you're sure that your code is done in the proper way and might just need a class change or something, have that in your accept statement where you will print the class, and you already have your original class name, and you will print the current class name. If those are not equal, then have that print you a user message where revisit the site for amendments or whatever you want to call it that. So you know what changes happen. So it's like a try and else statement, and then in that have a test where with your current class names and with your saved class names and the current class names being used, and then go change it based on that. And never, I would this is something also that Mustafa guided me toward. It's when you're trying to scrape, never scrape the same term without changing anything in it. So it was something as stupid as so if you're typing wedding rings just like that, right? Add multiple spaces, and that is considered a new search term for Amazon, and they won't pick you up. They won't block you as easy as if you're typing wedding rings without any spaces every time. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Of course.
So a lot of sites just publish their own APIs. I was wondering if you explored that in any regard. Like if you go on the website, you right click, and then you instead of going into the elements, and you'll see the networks tab. Sometimes that can be a good way of figuring out what information is being transferred.
You're saying here, click here.
Yeah, like right click, go to inspect. Now you see how it goes elements, console, sources, network. Go to network and refresh the page. So all those things popping up there are all the network requests that go in. And so one of these might actually be the data that you're looking for. They can be a bit hard to go through. I would maybe filter it out by charity, like you see the filter in the top left. Type in charitynavigator.org.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's good.
So those are all the ones. Well, yeah, those are all the ones going to their backend, and they might have some relevant information to what you actually want to see. Like, can you click on them? No, not the Google Analytics ones. Yeah, go back to the networks. Networks tab.
Huh?
Not that. You'll have to like check them out. Like go down. Maybe the. Yeah, like hover over them. No, not the Google Analytics ones.
Oh, so this is all Google. And
yeah, it looks like they're all Google.
Yeah. Survey.
Yeah, they're all analytics.
Okay. What are you trying to find here? If it was what?
So sometimes like you can either do server-side rendering, which is not going to allow this, or you can do a lot of the rendering on the browser side, and then the browser will actually send network requests for the rest of the data, right? So you'll have like a Flask backend, and it'll serve JSON objects, and so they'll send requests to get these JSON objects, and then you can also use that same endpoint to get those objects.
After I find the end request, I'll still have to come here, find the tags and divs that I'm looking for.
Well, if you find the actual data being before it's rendered, then you wouldn't have to, like, if you find the data you're looking for, then you're all good. You don't have to do anything else.
So what you're saying is this element might be sent to something and okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I'll stop sharing.
Sure, I'll share. I can. A to Z directory, right?
Yes, dark mode. Mustafa, you should adopt that.
Yeah, I will.
Let me see if it's better chance.
Actually, I am dark mode except for that. The other one that is white is the.
Sorry.
Is the
teasing
silly
you. You know,
it's fine. It's fine.
I gotta tease.
It's really comfortable for me to go through this dark mode. Creeping does take a lot of time. Working at night without dark mode is basically screwed.
Oh my god.
And would the same thing be available for like bank websites?
So there's ways to make it. I don't know what happened to this page. There's ways to make it so that you don't have access to these things. Well, sort of. I mean, if it's information being shown to the person, at the end of the day, they have access to that information. Do they have access to like a pretty printed version of that? Probably not. So this is literally all of the things that get. This networks tab is all of the information that's being sent to the UI, to the browser, right? So even this first one all the way at the top is this website, right? So this is the Charity Navigator. Oh, and actually, yeah. So based on seeing this, it gets rendered on the back end. So my point is bad. But for example, if I can go to my website, my local website, let me pop it back in.
Oh my god, Matt, what happened here?
To my website.
This graph thing?
I am cleaning it up. It's actually two graphs because I copied one of the graphs. If you look at a simpler graph, it'll be fine.
Okay, cool.
It's gonna take forever because. But yeah, now if you look at the networks tab, you literally see all of my backend endpoints, and you can actually see my data. And so if you find one of these, this is like a great way to just literally take someone's data.
Sorry, Matt, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry, just to understand. So go into the network tab, and when you click on the network tab, you have all these sort of these indices or whatever they are, right? I'm sorry. Are you
so
saying?
These are all the network requests that happen, right? So one of them is literally for the HTML, right? So this one here is literally for the HTML that's being rendered on this website, right? Some websites don't just render the entire website all at once. There's actually stages, and a lot of the rendering actually happens on the front end. So what they'll do is they'll render a base template of the website, and then what they'll do is have the front end JavaScript start to query the backend for more information, to get that information and then render it further, right? So here, what I do is I literally set this data all the way to the backend. This is my course data and whatnot is literally sent as JavaScript all the way, or no, as JSON objects all the way to the front end. All right, and so someone went here and literally took this endpoint. You're querying my backend server at this point.
So you're saying that actually we should, I mean, this seems, if I'm understanding correctly, like you're saying just go to the network tab and then grab that local host file that you just showed, which has all of that backend code there.
So the reason it's localhost is because this server is running on my computer. So it's gonna usually gonna be different. Can be their website or whatever. It's their backend server, their backend URL, or whatever. The reason it works on mine is because I don't do server side rendering. I do front end rendering, and it's because I don't want to do any of that work on my server. That website we were looking at earlier, Charity Navigator, what I can see here is I literally can see in the preview that most of this website in fact gets rendered. Everything but the CSS basically gets rendered. And one of these other files is going to be the CSS, like this file right here. This is the CSS that got sent to the front end.
So what do you do with this? With now that you find it, even just like go in one of the.
So none of these are going to be relevant. You actually have to. This website is a bad example of this. My question was, did you look to see if it was possible? And it turns out it's not possible on this website.
And I didn't know this before. Yeah.
But let me see. Let me see if Google's.com, right? No, I don't.
Amazon. Go try Amazon.
I doubt Amazon's friendly. All right. I cleared all of that. Oh my god. How many network requests? Right, so I'll search Charity Navigator. This thing, nope.
While you're browsing, just real quick, so do you have like a sample code or something like in your GitHub repository or somewhere? You've actually taken the data out of the network, like scraped the data out of the network or whatever this file that you were looking at or something like that? You can look at.
I mean, the best example would be literally any website that I do for myself. And so, right here, I have a server running locally, right? I in fact have two of these running. And so, let me see if I can just show my thing.
Another website. What?
Or is it the loading bars? Can you guys see it?
What part?
No? Is it the loading bars?
Wait. What are we supposed to be seeing? Your network traffic?
Yeah, it should be the same screen, but I'm serving it as.
I don't see anything. I just see these two dots, but.
Oh, I don't know, Matt. I can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Is John the only one that can't see it?
Jotin, what is that internet connection?
It's probably.
Oh, it happened all this time too. Let me fix this. You guys carry on.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So this terminal is my front end framework. This one's my backend framework. If I actually stop this running and I try loading my website, what's going to happen is my website actually loads, but it hits a point where it tries querying my backend and no information gets by. So something goes wrong. Right? So let's go back to it working. And take a second.
Jonathan, you can just close the stream and open it again. That worked. It was loading for it.
Right. So we see that this is red, and we see that it's failed to load a response. Basically, they tried getting this request and it failed. And now what happens is, since my server is running, these requests are going to succeed, and they're actually going to return data. All right. So if you actually just hit this endpoint. So if I copy, you guys know curl?
Hell yeah.
Copy as curl, and I literally go into the terminal, and I send that same curl message, I get all of that same data back.
Oh wow.
You know, all of this
Can I use this opportunity to plug a website? Curl. It's like curl to requests, where you can paste the curl command and it'll turn it into a Python request command.
Awesome. That's great, because then we can literally just hop between the two. What is it? Curl to request?
I think that's it right at the top.
Curl works. Copy a curl
Oh,
command.
paste the curl command. You
Oh,
get Python
nice.
requests.
That was the top secret, Devin, for me, right?
Oh my god, yeah, that is top secret. I showed Jonathan it, and I was like, don't tell anyone about this. Master can't reveal his secrets, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, the whole YouTube knows that now.
Yeah, I'm glad. Give this guy some web traffic. I wish I thought of making that tool. It's a cool thing.
All right, so
That's pretty cool.
there we go. So now I actually have my response data. What is it? Response.json?
I think you text or JSON, whichever it comes out as. Yeah.
There you go. And so this is literally a JSON object of my entire, all the
So-
data.
But you still have to go through this data, right? Like, if we do the same thing for the website, what data is it going to present? The list of the companies or the
So it's a
information
JSON
that is
object.
inside?
So I can literally go through it and go, okay, what do I want? I want the data, the tech course, right? Let's say I want the subtopics, right? So I got them. So I'm not navigating through HTML. I'm navigating through JSON. All right. So if I do for IN, all right, I sub ID. All right. So those are all the IDs.
Woo!
Oh my god, this is like amazing.
Godly.
So this is like, so what is this? This is basic, like we talked about APIs in the bootcamp, right? You can find an API. Basically, a lot of websites work by having their own private APIs behind them that they query themselves, right? And so they won't tell you about the API, but the API still exists there, right? So this makes a lot of sense when the API is public and they publish it and they're like, oh, if you send me this, you send data to this endpoint, and you send this JSON object, we'll return this other JSON object, right? That makes sense? Well, that same thing exists, but they just don't publish it, is basically what I'm talking about, right? I think I read it actually. Well,
So it's this, you get the JSON, and then now we just have to figure out whether it's going through the names of the companies or the information inside the names of the companies, and loop over the different URLs that we need to visit or whatever other information you get.
That website we went through, the conclusion is you can't actually do it there. And the reason I'm saying that you can't do it there is when we actually navigate to the website, the first request that we send, clear, start over. The first request is literally that website, right? So this right here, this request in the network tab is the request to that website, right? And then all of these other requests are actually triggered by that website. Well, actually, some of them are triggered by my own Chrome extensions. But like this one is a request for fonts, right? So this website will load, and then it won't have all of the fonts. And then after the fact, it'll load the fonts, and then it'll re-render itself.
That's
And
great.
the point I'm trying to make is it's always useful to kind of look through these and to see what data is being sent. But the issue that I'm saying, I'm going further, is that why I know this path is not gonna be helpful for this website is I go to that first request, which is for that page, and then I can see that the data is already in there, right? So all of these website things are already exist. Actually, let me click on one of these.
So I'm trying to understand the problem. So is it the first item in this network response that you're looking for that needs to have something specific? I'm sorry.
So this first response is literally the HTML being sent backwards. I'm in preview mode right now, but if I look at the actual response, it's literally just the HTML being sent back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is the object that I like. How do websites work? Websites are literally just documents that get sent back and forth. Right. So when I go to a URL, what I'm doing is I'm like, okay, send me the document send me the document that exists at this website, or send me the document that exists at this URL, and they send that back to me. Then I start processing that document, and all of these other requests get triggered because of my processing of that document. And so this is what this website would look like without any of that other information. So Becky Whitmer. Because Becky, so she exists already on the website being sent back, which means they probably use either some server-side rendering, like the templating framework. Like,
it's a minor question. Just for the sake of trial and error, you get the same information of that C URL that you got the curl, and see what is the response from that.
Yeah, I mean, so a curl is literally the same thing. So if I go to example.com, right?
No, this for this one.
Well, let me explain curl a lot simply. Like, this is the response I get from example.com, right? It's a very simple HTML. Right? Now, if I go, if I curl example.com, that's literally what I'm going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Matt. Just to be clear, so you went to example.com, you right-clicked and got the curl URL, you went to your terminal, copied it, the curl statement there, the curl link there, or the curl, really.
Well, so I just typed curl example.com. Right? I didn't have to copy anything because I know how simple it is.
Everybody
So,
go do that in your terminal right now.
And so instead of going to this website through my browser, which has like all these rendering capabilities and is a lot more advanced, I'm going through this very simple terminal UI, which is my like, command line UI, and I'm getting the same document being sent back, but I'm not doing any processing. Right? All I'm doing is just getting this document. Right? So let's say I got this document and then I piped it into like a hello.html. Great. And then I can go and I can actually open up that document. All right. Here's the document, and now when I reveal in Finder and I open it, it's the same website. But this one is a different URL. This one's a local file.
Hey Matt, could I just chime in when like looking at the network traffic tab? Sometimes if you click that XHR filter, I had to Google it. It's XML HTTP requests, so there's like asynchronous requests. It can help you identify API calls and things like that more easily for someone like Mustafa who was just learning about this stuff.
Sorry, can you go a bit even slower? Since I'm still learning, sorry about that. Say it again.
If you click what Matt just clicked, which is in this network tab, that XHR, you see how it says all and then XHR?
Yeah.
That's XML HTTP request. This is directly from Google, MDN. JavaScript API to create AJAX requests, which are just asynchronous requests. And so this can help you identify like calls to an API or like a web database that the website is making. And so most often it's like JSON objects. So most often you might find the data you're looking for in this filter XHR.
Okay, thank you.
And Evan, do you just right-click on this to get the curl, like if you're on another website? Where are you getting the curl from?
Yeah, you could still, like Matt showed, you could still right-click on any of these and get the curl command.
You're saying it's better to go with an XML HTTP response. Fine.
So when you go through all of them, it's literally everything that your browser is requesting, right? So I mentioned that the CSS documents are also being requested, right? If I go to the CSS, this is all of these CSS files, right? And if all of these things failed, I would have the same skeleton of a website, but it would look different because the CSS isn't rendering. So what he's pointing out is this XHR tab is responsible not for like images or JavaScript or CSS. It's responsible for network queries, responsible for with data, right? So that's more likely to be the tab that you want to look at.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Yeah, awesome.
Jonathan, I'm going to tease you because we've done this.
I know.
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Evan is a little feisty tonight.
No. I love this, like, off the cuff, looking at network traffic, whatever.
Thank you so much. This is very helpful. I'm going to drop off. Thank you, guys.
See you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Justin.
Later, Jonathan. Yeah. Mustafa, do you publish your code on a GitHub account?
No, no. That's maybe the idea of the blog would be useful. I don't know. What do you suggest?
I mean, I definitely recommend pushing it to a GitHub account. It's a lot easier to share.
Yeah.
I also recommend pulling it out of Jupyter Notebooks at some point, especially if you're trying to make it to like a real system. Because Jupyter Notebooks is very good for like testing out Python and running scripts, but if you're trying to actually make a code base out of it, you're gonna have a lot of trouble doing like things in it.
Oh yeah, committing it to GitHub is so rough.
Yeah, I usually have them in like Py files or something. After I'm done testing, I download them as Py file. It's free to run whether in Git Bash or just push them to GitHub or something, or even what did we use in bootcamp? The GitLab. It's easier.
Yeah, so GitLab is actually friendly with Jupyter Notebooks file. I don't think GitHub is yet, but they'll probably develop a nice friendly interface at some point.
Yeah.
What, for like change tracking?
Yeah, for even rendering of these files.
I know GitHub renders it though because it's like HTML, but the change tracking was bad at least. So it's really cool if GitLab figured that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think so GitLab did the rendering, right? I don't think GitHub did. Did you say GitHub was also doing the rendering of Jupyter Notebook files?
Yeah, for sure it does. I like definitely have a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, GitHub is all round now too. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I like the way it looks.
But that happens whenever someone changes the UI.
They just
Everyone always
rounded
hates
all the edges. What the heck? It's like the new Mac OS did the same thing. Why? Why are we doing this?
It's 2020's design choices.
Yeah, I guess we're in for some weird stuff.
Oh, so hot.
All right, y'all. I had a lot of fun.
Guys.
All right. Remember to fill out. So we sent out the survey for times because there was a request to kind of push it back. So remember to fill that out if you care about when we meet. And then otherwise, if, thank you for presenting, everyone. And enjoy coding and happy coding.
Happy coding.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, wait, which channel is that survey in?
It was over email.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, can you please get a Gmail, Evan? Please?
It's fine. Why wouldn't you post it in the Discord? Get out of here.
No,
All
I
right.
sent you an email.
All right, I'll check my email. I'll switch over to a Gmail for you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. I love you.
No problem. All right, bye.
All right,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Thank you,
All right,
Mustafa,
bye-bye.
for presenting.
Take care.
Bye-bye,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Disconnect. Bye, guys. And streaming.